This is a little teaser for anyone who's watching.
And he shows up in Miami looking to party. I'll say that too. He's like, where's the girls? Where's the booze? Where's the fun?
He can still whoop me up. You know what I'm saying? Say, hey, but bro, you had me out there looking soft. You know, he can still come get me.
Every single one of you did little small physical things.
The vibe of the man.
Yeah, the vibe of the man, yeah. Hi, I'm Regina King, and welcome to Entertainment Weekly's Around the Table with the cast of One Night in Miami. I am joined with the fabulous four: Eli Goree, Leslie Odom Jr., Kingsley Ben-Adir, and Aldis Hodge.
Minister Malcolm X.
Good news, the chariot is coming.
Who's the greatest? That's right.
Jim Brown takes the ball.
Your record is going to stand the test of time.
All together, yeah.
All right, so welcome, fellas. So happy to
What's up?
be with you all virtually. Now, I think it's important for everyone to get to know you all a little bit better. You know, we'll just go around the table and just, if you could say who you're playing. Let's keep it honest, and we'll go alphabetical order, and then maybe we'll reverse it for the next question. So start with you, Kingsley.
Hey, I'm Kingsley Ben-Adir, and I'm playing Malcolm X. February 25th, 1964, Malcolm was in an interesting place in his life. I think the most important thing for me in playing Malcolm was understanding where he was at in terms of his transition from being pushed out of the Nation of Islam, or his exit from the Nation of Islam, into a new place where he was beginning to think about starting his own movement. So yeah, I think I was playing Malcolm X at a very, very specific and particular moment where lots was going on. He was in a place of huge transition in the way that he was viewing the world.
And Eli?
My name is Eli Goree, and I'm playing Cassius Clay on the eve of him winning his first heavyweight championship belt over Sonny Liston, where he was an 8-1 underdog. Also, at that time, he was transitioning into being officially a member and a public member of the Nation of Islam. And so it was a very tumultuous time. It was a very controversial time. There were a lot of different elements at play, politically, professionally, personally, socially. And he was a very young man, but wise beyond his years at 22 years old. Navigated them, I think, as expertly as anyone could have given the circumstances.
Mr. Hodge?
Hello, this is Aldis Hodge. I play Jim Brown, and where we meet Mr. Brown in '64, he was considering retiring from, his mega career as a football star, moving into film. For him, I think where he is was a place of understanding a piece of what influence and power looks like for him at this time, because he was such a major and pivotal figure in sports, but also understanding how to take that power and transform it into a sense of control in terms of his narrative and where he wanted to go. Because as we see later in '65, he started the Black Economic Union, so he understood the value of being ahead of and in control of your own dollar, and he understood that for the culture. So where we meet him is him figuring out how to, act on that decision and what it really, really means.
And Mr. Odom.
Leslie Odom Jr. I play the legendary Sam Cooke. And we meet Sam really at, I think, the beginning of what he probably would have thought was a second act for him and his career. He'd had such tremendous success already as a recording artist, and it was something that he was, by all accounts, he was really in the process of leaving behind. He was going to produce and make sure that other voices made it to the forefront. And this ended up, Sam was murdered within the year. He wasn't with us, by the time we got to the next February. But I really think that this was something that, he was coming to the end of a chapter as a recording artist. And he shows up in Miami looking to party. I'll say that too. He's like, where's the girls? Where's the booze? Where's the fun?
I could get used to that.
I was made in America, land of the free, home of the brave.
This movement that we are in is called a struggle. Because we are fighting for our lives.
It's interesting. I think because you did touch on something there, so I guess I'll dive in, knowing that both of these men are slain within a year of this moment. Malcolm, like a year and a few days. Did that influence in any way your choices as an actor?
I'd listened to a lot of Sam coming up, obviously. Singing is an oral tradition. And so Sam is one of my teachers. So I knew a lot about Sam's stylings as a vocalist, but I never had reason to do this much research and reading on him as a man. But in my research for this, I made a very conscious effort. I stopped always at the death. December, he died in December. I never ever wanted to deal with December because December was not present in February. That is the great tragedy. I wanted him to be full of life in that hotel room. As full of life, I got the world ahead of me. There's so much that I want to accomplish. I want to accomplish a lot tonight. I'm trying to cover some ground tonight. Yeah, I never wanted that sort of, that tragic coda. I just really didn't want that to be present in that room. That's for me.
I agree. I think there's in the playing of it, I'm not sure how knowing that both of these men were dead within a year influenced anything, but there was just something harrowing about sort of understanding that, going into it, that just the random likeness of it and how mad that is that they were both gone, within no time before the age of 40. I think Malcolm was 38 or 39. But yeah, in the playing of it, I'd agree with Leslie. I don't think it sort of had any influence on choices.
Yeah, it's interesting because your performances definitely had influence on the ending, because as you guys all know, the ending is different than from what was written and what we shot. So this is a little teaser for anyone who's watching. But your performances definitely inform the change that Tarek and I decided was the strongest ending for the quadrumvirate, as I so fondly call you. Eli, you had to go through a pretty significant body transformation, as well as, whatever preparation you did for Cassius.
I remember when I first came in and read for you, you were like, you're a little bit lean. Are you going to be able to get to that point, by the time we start shooting? And I was confident that I could. I had a plan, and, my trainer, Ken, we had an idea of what we needed to do. What I didn't really take into account was the boxing, that while I was getting bigger, I was also going to have to get quicker and faster and move more fluidly.
You had to, correct me if I'm wrong, but all the boxing stuff was right at the end of the shoot. So.
Correct. Yeah. Which again was, and I thank Regina for that, because at first we had it up first. And I was very honest. I said, I'm not ready. I can't, I need more time for the boxing training. I need more time to gain the weight. And so I was training after we would wrap, and in the morning before we would shoot, I'd be training in the gym, in the weight room in the morning. And then after the shoot, I'd do boxing and then turn it around again. And then by the end of the shoot, when we did all the fight scenes, even though they're at the top of the movie, I felt very confident. I felt very ready. And the team that we had around it with Elle and, all the fighters and stuff like that, they really, it really came together really well.
I love that you said you weren't ready. I love that you admitted that. And you know, it's just so funny for young actors. I bet anybody could speak to this, but it's really hard to like get in these big, you know, when you have these big opportunities and carve out, you know, space for process for yourself. You know, and I saw all of you guys and working together, everybody really protecting their own space and protecting a sort of sacred space for process. Regina too, you know, nobody did it more than Regina. Regina protected us and made sure that we got our, you know, our space to work. But I love that I didn't know that, so I love that you said, I am ready.
When is this party going down?
Yeah, that's a good question. What's on the agenda, Malcolm?
Well, I thought this would be a wonderful chance for us to reflect on what's happened tonight. Like our young brother said, there's no denying that greater forces were at work.
You mean no one else is coming?
Oh, rest assured, my brother, you're not missing anything.
Aldis, you have a really unique position that the other three actors didn't share, where, you know, Jim Brown is actually still with us. What was that preparation? And the second part of the question, I know the answer to, and I know I was part of this decision as well. But what did you speak to Jim prior to us working on the film?
Yeah, so I'll start with the latter half of that question first. I did not speak to Jim Brown. I think it was a creative decision. And for me personally, as an artist, the way I looked at it was I would like to, in my capability, honor him with how I see and have been influenced by him. So I hope at the end of the day he's satisfied, and you know, because you know, I mean, he can still whoop me up. You know what I'm saying? You know, say, hey, but bro, you had me out there looking soft. You know, he can still come get me. I don't know. I could be wrong. But
no, I think I like to think that you are correct, and I would stand by your performance in every single one of your performances. I would lay across the train track for it. I have watched this film more than anyone else, and I still find little nuanced things that each of you have done. So I want to ask about that, you know, still on the conversation of preparation. Every single one of you did little small physical things that were specific to the men that you were playing that we never had a conversation about. And you guys infused those things in your performance. So what made you choose those specific things?
The vibe of the man.
Yeah, the vibe of the man. Yeah.
I feel like I didn't necessarily consciously have a set plan, but so much of it was watching, listening, and then trying to absorb the text. So I think the more you watch Malcolm and the more you listen to him, the more there's like an understanding of how there was just a lightness about how he moves through space. I don't want to describe him as gangly, but there's definitely a lightness and a slenderness about him that's very, very specific to how we see him. With the watching and the listening and the dialect, it's trying to marry that into Kemp's words, you know, and trying to sort of like make sure that they're all active and happening at the same time. And I think by halfway through the shoot, those things just became sort of subconscious. You know, you just jump into it and understand like how he would operate within the scenes. That was such a huge part of the joy of like getting to play Malcolm, was being able to like study the physicality and then try and do it without it being an impersonation or a caricature. And that's the, you know, the kind of tightrope that you're walking every day. And bless all you guys for letting me, you know, fly all those mantras out, because that really sort of helped, you know, stay in that space and keep all of that. But yeah.
I mean, I dig on all that. What'd you say? What you say it's the vibe of the how did it go?
I was just like, you know, just the
vibe of the man. The vibe.
Nah, yeah, I remember. I mean, after a while, you study a person so intently that it becomes second nature, or subconscious to a degree when you're moving how you're moving. All four of us were so dialed in doing this work 24/7, couldn't help but eventually come to set and start looking at each other like, catch it? Nah. You know what I mean? Like you get confused after a while, which is a good thing. I remember, I think I mentioned this to you before, Regina and ADR. You pointed out to me that I was walking different in one of the scenes, and I didn't realize, and I looked at the shot and I was like, oh yeah, there's a little different bop to it, because we're also in the 60s where there's a different vibe about how we move and how we, come up, and there's a different pace with everything. So kind of being in the time frame was great, and down to the colors you chose and how you chose the costumes and how you were very, very specific about what we were wearing, how we wore it, how that defined each of us. That helped keep us in a state of understanding who and what we were in the moment as well. So, but I think watching all of the mannerisms is what adds to the actual persona of the person. So it just naturally sort of ingratiates itself into your thought process.
That was one of the things that when I was on set, I would often pay attention to physically how you act, like how you walk, how you carry yourself. I noticed that it was something that it seemed like you were very attentive to, or maybe just subconsciously it just came out and after you did your preparation. But it was something I would watch. I think I even came behind Video Village a couple of times and I mentioned it to Regina. I was like, look at how it seems like it would look like you're doing nothing when I'd be on set. And then I'd go behind set and I'd look sometimes when I was allowed to once in a while. You just have these moments in your eyes or just in the way your posture was or things like that. That was definitely something that I was like, so like you said, like to what you're saying, like picking up from each other different things. That was definitely something that I noticed. I was like, oh yeah, Aldis is really good at making himself physically, even when he's not, because there's a lot of times when we're sitting there and there's other people talking and you're present, but you don't have any lines. And so to make sure that your character is still in the room, that it's not like, oh, Cassius leaves the room when, Malcolm and Sam are talking, or when Malcolm and Jim are talking. It's like, no, like Cassius needs to still be there. It can't be Eli there now.
Yes, Cassius Marcellus Clay is the new heavyweight champion of the world, boy.
Yes, he is.
And I don't even have a scratch on my face. Oh my goodness.
Cash.
What's on, Cash?
What? Cash, what?
Why am I so pretty?
And I'm only... Well, speaking to that point, like we all had very distinctive energies that also influenced how we moved. And, I mean, Jim was a little, he was older than Cassius. He had a different sort of, but Cassius was the energy in the room. So you had a lot of work to do there when it came to keeping that energy up and keeping it honest. Because, I mean, you just coming off of winning the championship fight. I mean, anybody in their right mind is going to be, you know what I mean? But I remember seeing you go through those choices, trying to figure out what was most appropriate and what was the most physically believable and honest choice for the moment. And we went through that back and forth, and I saw you just, flipping through that dictionary of this choice, this, boom, and then you hit it. You know what I mean? It was very calculated, and it was fun to watch, man, for sure. Because, like I said, each of our energies was so distinguishable from one another, which is what makes, I think, the film work so well and makes it so fun to watch, because we get to see all of these actual superheroes in different places emotionally. Primarily, I think, for when we see. We know Muhammad Ali. We've been introduced to Muhammad Ali. This is the first time we get to speak to Cassius through the screen. You know what I mean? We know Sam through the music, through the legend, through the iconic nature of his influence, but do we know Sam? This is the first time we get to have that conversation.
As a Sam fan, somebody who's listened to a lot of Sam Cooke, there was a missing piece in my education, and that was Sam at the Harlem Square in 1963, and who he gave himself permission to be in front of a black audience. The way that everything about his swag and his delivery, the conviction in his delivery, the honesty in his delivery. And so I really used Trey and I. Trey was our brilliant dialect coach on this movie too. You know, I really used the way Sam was speaking at that club that was a bridge to the way he might speak and the way he might interact with this, you know, as a link to a side of him that we didn't know as well, you know, because all the footage that we have of Sam is him, respectfully, I say, you know, performing for white folks, you know, for primarily white audiences. We had a chance in that hotel room to give legitimacy and to give voice to the side of these men that they didn't have the time to show us. They didn't give themselves permission to show us, you know, but there was a way that they were possibly allowed to be amongst each other, that if we had the courage enough, we could give permission to a certain kind of truth and a certain kind of honesty and a certain kind of legitimacy to the reality of Black life.
This ain't about civil rights. Welcome to America. They ain't giving Black people what they really want.
What's that?
Hey, I was made in America. That's why I'm out here saving America.
Power.
Black power. I like the sound of that.
Right. And I think that's something that's really important to share. That was a discovery that I've made throughout this process, was that, you know, what initially when I read Kemp's piece, what attracted me was immediately the fact that I felt like I really knew all of these men. These men represented all of the Black men in my life that I know and love, and it felt like a love letter for those Black men. And that's one of the things that made me gravitate to the story. And I would always say, you know, the Black man's experience in America. But as this process started going and auditioning, and, you know, Eli and Kingsley hands down being the standouts during my auditioning process for those roles, and me choosing my editor, Tariq Anwar, what it expanded for me. And I realized that this is a Black man's experience. And when I started having conversations with Black men that weren't American, the conversation starting with Kingsley and Eli, I started really realizing just that there is this connection, that whether you're a Black man in Brazil or England, you know, there is this erasure. Being a 6-foot Black man, how you have to put on this talisman so that you don't make anyone else feel scared when you're getting on an elevator. And these things are things that are not just specific to Black American life, which made this film become just that much more prescient while we were shooting. And then obviously everything, this reckoning that we've come to in America as of recent. So when you guys, I'm prefacing all of that with this question. You know, you guys read the scripts and it affected you and inspired you to want to be a part of it for whatever that reason was. But throughout the process and then finishing and actually seeing it at the time that we're seeing it now, did your trajectory change in any way? Did you feel differently seeing the finished product, having had the experience, than when you first read it?
When I tested with Aldis, the second audition scene, I had to do it a couple of times. And the note, I believe, was about not trying to do anything in the scene, just really talking to him. I remember it was difficult for me at the time because, you know, first of all, I'm in front of Regina King. And second of all, I'm trying to, like, you know, have my moment, you know what I mean? This is my moment scene. So I'm trying to have the moment, and I took the note, but I couldn't quite take the note. the way I wanted to. And I think you maybe saw that I had the potential to get there. When we actually did it, it was after the pandemic had hit, and it was after a lot of the George Floyd and all these things that happened. Everything in that felt different now. Now I was able to say those words in that scene, and it wasn't about a moment. It wasn't about, because I was living it now. Don't black people deserve that much after all we've been through? Words like that were able to come out, and it wasn't about acting.
I was thinking about nerves the other day, and like the pressure of playing someone like Malcolm. And I think a journalist asked me, like, were you scared? And I was thinking about what I don't feel like I was, but I feel like as an actor, particularly for this audition, it's the preparing to share with you for the first time what the interpretation might be, and then waiting to find out if you're going to get the job is the most sort of like anxiety ridden time, and then when you get the gig, the adrenaline kicks in and you go into work mode. I'm just trying to prepare to come in on the day so we can like try and figure it out and share, and there's kind of small nerves in that day to day, depending if it's a big, if you put pressure on certain scenes for emotions or whatever. And then there's the bit where you hand over it and there's the edit and then you just forget about it. And then I guess that's the part that I find most stressful, the beginning before you've got it and when it's out of your hands. But it was just such an incredible opportunity as an actor to have, like, to just this moment, it may never come. You may never get to play someone as deeply complex and rich as Malcolm X in a beautiful script with you, it's like triple whammy. It's really nuts. And I don't think like that's really sunk in.
I want to piggyback to your earlier conversation, Regina, about, this being a black man's experience. It is fully, and that's what I love about it, because I know for me, I know my experience is here in America as a black man. And then when I travel the world, some places I'm treated better than I am here, not because I'm black, though, because I'm American. Because when I observe the black people who are native to that land, they are still treated with their own version of racism, detriment, segregation, these type of things. And I realize black around the world is black around the world. Like, when we gonna catch a break? So that's the thing I love about the power of our art in a film like this, because it helps me feel like we are doing a part of our work. This is our moment. You're right. When we shot this, I know I finished my work on this film in January. It was pre-pandemic, Mr. George Floyd, Mr. Ahmaud Arbery, Miss Breonna Taylor, and everyone else, in the interim, even though we've been dealing with the stress for so long, and this is nothing new, it's not a new conversation, but this exploded in a different way because everybody had to sit home and deal with it, right? Coming to the film, I knew this film had potential for purpose. Watching the film much later, it hit so much differently. The conversations hit differently, and it made me feel verified and validated in that we are doing our part in serving a purpose for the time now, because a project like this, we all come together with our best hearts and intentions for it. And I feel like when it speaks to me, it lets me know that we're at least trying to do our part for our moment, because we got work to do. I feel like having you, Regina, as our leader, our quarterback on this is the most appropriate way to go about it, because some may see this film and only see black men and only think about the black man's experience, when in actuality we're representing the totality of the black experience, especially in America. But it's not singularly just the black men. We are led by a black woman, because in my experience in this country, we as black men have been most protected by the black women. So, and that's just, like, I was raised by a black mama, got a black sister. I know, where we come from. And at the end of the day, that's who understands us most. That's who heals us most. That's who we can talk to the most. When our brothers aren't right next to us, we got our sisters. So for our sisters, this film is about y'all too, an acknowledgement of y'all too. And the strength that we exhibit on screen, part of that is the strength that we get from y'all. And that's just what I feel personally as a black man, knowing what my experience has been in this crazy country. So
yeah, it's like if it is a love letter to black men, who's writing the love letter, and we're very clear on who that was with Regina. I agree with you on that, Aldis. I'll say it's been my experience that whenever you stand in the light, whenever you stand in a moment and you have the courage to be your brilliant, bold, wretched, beautiful, flawed self. You know, whenever you have the courage to stand in the light and reveal the human in your being, you give someone else the permission to do the same thing. You give someone else permission to be themselves in the same way. And so when I look at the film, I hope that we've done that. I think we have. You know, when I watch Kingsley and Aldis and Eli and the work of our entire crew, I'm encouraged to go forth and be more honest and be more reckless and daring in the things that I have in front of me.
I wish I lived in America.
We have to be there for each other.
Heard everybody rich, all I gotta do is run, jump, kick, I'm a hit in your area. I done made it to America. I'm amazed at America. Welcome to America.
So thank you everyone for joining us. I can speak to these men all day, but we have to wrap it up. So this has been Entertainment Weekly's Around the Table with the cast of One Night in Miami. Thank you, gentlemen. And I encourage all of you to check out the film One Night in Miami so you can see these amazing performances and all the amazing work from our entire crew. December 25th, could be an and or. Check us out on Amazon Prime Video, January 15th. We'll be streaming there. Thank you, and we'll see you later.